morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
As we make our way through the winter of 2016 and 17, we have watched a lot of news coverage of folks in the city really struggling with icy sidewalks and drafty bedrooms, and lots of them are complaining. Meanwhile, out on an isolated cow camp on the prairie, a cowboy is looking after a herd, living in a one-room shack and using an outdoor bathroom that doesn't even have a roof or walls, cooking on a wood stove that heats the cabin, and in those long evenings he writes terrific songs and beautiful poems. That's a guy many of you know, Ed Brown, and you'll hear from him today.
The bull kept running underneath willows and so on like that, and the guy that had the dolly on the 1 foot had to keep getting off his horse and then go around the willows, pick up the rope, and jump back on it, dally up again.
And speaking of ropes and wrecks, Baxter Black describes the time the Texas Cowpunchers and the Nevada Buckaroos went head-to-head in a big ranch rodeo.
The Buckaroo, a horseback, threw his 40-footer right. He dallied just about the time the Texans' rope came tight.
On the Rangeland News,
to not only wipe and wash down their feet, but also their legs and belly to take any of these chemicals off.
And you'll find out what that's all about today, and Ed Brown will be in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight too.
Was the cell phone hanging from the back of your saddle? What a hell of a time to get a phone call. Seems the roan agreed and let out a bawl. Then he dropped his head and started to pitch, and pretty soon they were both upside down in the ditch.
On the Irvine Saddles and Western Wear horse training file, barn soured and herd-bound horses, can they be helped? Oh, you bet. And I can't wait to get to our classic Song of the West this week, because I really want to listen to this beautiful jam again. Ed Brown has a true life adventure after Oregon rancher and former bronc rider Tony Lundervold gets us started.
I get up in the morning, fill my coffee cup. Today's gonna be a long one. Got wire to hang and calves to brand. I work as long as the sun does. I'm gonna spend all day in my saddle, breaking colts and sorting cattle, with the help of my border collie by my side. I'm an educated man, but I didn't get a PhD. And everything I've learned is what this way of life has taught me. 'Cause I sure don't teach you the cowboy in school. Now I don't work a job from 9 to 5. My day ends when the work is done. But I live my life the way I choose. I don't have to answer to anyone. Now you might think my lifestyle is rough, so you may think I'm a fool, but they sure don't teach you the cowboy in school. I'm an educated man, but I didn't get a PhD. Everything I've learned is what this way of life has taught me. 'Cause I sure don't teach you the cowboy in school.
Tony Lunderbold, and Ed Brown, of course, will be at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival next month, and he is a wonderful singer, songwriter, guitar player, and the real deal. A while back, he related this adventure revolving around a renegade bull.
And yeah, this bull, this is a pasture up in central Manitoba in the Interlake country, and it's about probably, I think about 65 sections, but it's all broken up into different. And this particular field was, I think, about two to 2.5 sections, and it was about 90% bush. And I came upon these guys that were, they were actually working in the pasture, they're friends of mine, and they had snagged this bull. And what had happened is they had been working this bull down along a fence line, where there was a clearing about, from the fence to the bush was approximately maybe 50 yards. And they told me the story later. They were riding along there, and the bull was going along real nice, and one of them said to the other one, well, maybe we should get down and tighten just in case he takes a run for the bush. And the other one says, yeah, that might be an idea. And by the time they got around to doing it, the bull was already heading for the bush. So the one guy got tightened, and he just managed to unload his loop as the bull hit the trees, and he got one back foot. Now, this is that kind of country where if you don't, you got about maybe 30 yards to catch your bull or your cow, or you don't see him for the rest of the summer, right? Yeah. And so they had this has all happened before I happened along. By the time I got there, they had the Catahoula dog on his tail, and they had this 1 foot, and the bull kept running underneath willows and so on like that, and the guy that had the dally on the 1 foot had to keep getting off his horse and then go around the willows, pick up the rope, and jump back on and dally up again. Meanwhile, the other guy's trying to get a head catch on him, but you couldn't, because you couldn't swing a rope in there, and there was just little wee bits of clearings here and there. So when I showed up, I volunteered to tie my horse up and get on the ground and retrieve the guy's rope, so he didn't have to keep getting dismounting and remounting. So I'm running doing this. I did it about 3 times, and then the bull went through this small clearing with a nice big tempting poplar tree right in the middle of it. And I thought, if I can get a dally around that tree, that'll be a good thing to do. It'll save us a lot of trouble. And I managed to get 1 loop around the tree, which, like we were talking about, is a mistake, but you don't have time to really think about the fact that hanging onto that rope is not a good idea.
With bare hands.
1,800-pound bull on the end of it. And my gloves were in my saddlebag about 100 yards back in my horse tied to a tree. So it caused me some, I didn't play the guitar for probably about a month and a half after that. I had, till the calluses got it was all in the inside of my...
There would be smoke coming from the hide in your hand.
Exactly. And I'm sure you've probably experienced that at one time or another.
Yeah, I don't know why. We don't let go. We grab on. I mean, I've lost my dallies more times than once, and I can still hold this 1,200-pound cow with my hand.
Exactly. And it's the thing about that kind of work is that the time you have to make the decision the window is so small that you don't have the time to think all the things through. And I think that's how a lot of guys lose thumbs when it's going like that.
Great to see that Ed still has all of his thumbs and fingers, because he really needs them the way he plays that great guitar. Coming up, more from Ed Brown, and you'll hear one of his fine songs when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. You know, when us old cowboys get together for a visit often, we like to remember some of our best roping adventures, and boy, over the years we do accumulate quite a few, not just with cattle and horses. Here's Ed Brown again.
I was mentioning about trying to rope a pig, and you said, and I believe this, or it explains a lot to me, because you said that it's harder to get a horse to track a pig than a bear, because I did try to rope a pig one time, and a friend of mine told me that the secret is to get a front foot in there too, because they won't, their heads are like a funnel, they'll just slip right off. And so I'm thinking about that, but I didn't even think about the fact that this horse was not going to follow that pig.
Now, was this a runaway pig that you'd been trying to catch?
It was one of those pot-belly, or one of wild Asian pigs or something. I don't know where they just showed up in a place someday. They come from, escaped out of somebody's other. So I was just riding out there one day to check the cows, and I saw this pig, and I thought, well, I'll rope this pig. And the horse, I think at first he thought he was going after a calf or something, and he I broke him into a run after that. And all of a sudden he looked at this thing, and it looked like a giant bug going across the ground, and he just put the blinders on. His eyes got like saucers, and he just about put me over his head.
Yeah, and he's not going any closer.
He would not go after that pig after that. We never did get that pig.
Well, when Ed spends some of those long, lonely winter evenings there in the line shack on the prairies, he writes some beautiful songs by lantern light, and here's one of them.
I hung up my rigging some years ago, headed down a different road. Where it ends, I still don't know. But no matter how far I go, no matter who I get to know, most of my best friends are still cowboys. Yeah, I used to like to kick 'em, but those days are gone. They say I tried them well enough. Hell, I won't say they're wrong. But that was then, and just last year I finally gave away all my gear. But most of my best friends are still cowboys. I guess we all move on, but then the best part of the song could be the words we never get to hear. We all need a place to hide when life gets too hard to ride. A place where hearts are true and skies are clear. I got a call the other day from an old friend 1,000 miles away. We talked about the days gone by. Gee, ain't it funny the way time flies? And when it was time for us to go, he said, it's kinda strange, but you know, most of my best friends are still cowboys. I guess we all move on, but then the best part of the song could be the words we never get to hear. We all need a place to go when the line gets too hard to tow. A place where hearts are true and skies are clear. I got a call the other day from an old friend 1,000 miles away. We talked about the days gone by. Gee, ain't it funny the way time flies? When it was time for us to go, he said, it's kinda strange, but you know, most of my best friends are still cowboys. Most of my best friends are still cowboys. And most of my best friends are still cowboys.
The other morning I was sitting at the breakfast table while Billy was working her magic with pancakes, biscuits, and gravy, and I pulled out one of Kim Taylor's calendars full of the finest authentic ranching scenes ever photographed, and there were some terrific pictures of ranchers in the winter feeding cows with a team and sleigh. And Ed Brown has done lots of that.
It's a Fjord Percher and Cross team, a nice little team, and they pull probably for maybe the whole team like 2,500 pounds soaking wet is what they'd weigh. And they would pull, I bet you they'd pull better than a lot of teams that are over 3,000 pounds, you know. And we got something, it's called a bale sled, and it has like a hydraulic hoist that picks up the round bale, and then you cut the twines off and unroll it. Well, last winter, the temperature got on the nasty side of 40 below several times, and when it gets that cold, you kind of get creative in trying to figure out how to make your job a little easier. And well, one thing I've noticed about anything to do with horses, if you try to get creative, it usually can cause problems. And so I got thinking, like, why couldn't you see? I didn't know that much about how round bales are really made. You know, I've untwined lots of them, but it's always in a feeder or something like that, or where you cut all the twines off and pull them out. But we're unrolling this bale, so I thought, well, why couldn't you just grab a hold of the loose end of that twine and have the other guy drive ahead with the team? And just as the bale unrolls, it would untwine itself.
You just hold one piece of twine, one string
of it. Yeah. And it, you know, when you don't think it through, That seems like a logical plan, but there's about a half a dozen reasons why that doesn't work, which I found out but the main one was that as the bale starts to untwine on one side, now there's half of it still tied up and the other half is loose, so the hay starts flying up in the air like from that, and it gets off. Yeah, and we had this, well, the gelding was all right at the team, but the mare was kind of not very partial to differences and surprises, so the team took off. And you know what it's like across them field of frozen cow turds, in the winter time, there's a lot of bouncing.
Were you still hanging on to the
that then came one of the other reasons why it doesn't work, and that is that them twines are almost never in one piece. So you end up with part of a twine and the rest of it's still tied on, and my friend Dick at the ribbons of the team, I could hear the cussing and swearing as it disappeared into the bush. But we have a lot of fun, and it works really well. We finally found out that.
Well, there's lots more to come from Ed Brown, and this is a classic cowboy episode when the Nevada Buckaroos went head-to-head with the Texas Cowpunchers at a big ranch rodeo. Baxter Black has the story when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan with a little peek at the Old Ranch Rodeo. When you go to B&W Hitch Factory for a visit, you won't need a passport or a Chinese translator. Why? Because their hitches are made right here in the heart of America. Sometimes that gets lost in the whir of our global economy, but lots of American businesses have survived the recession without cheapening their products or outsourcing jobs. Instead, they chose to stay at home, share the work, and spread the benefits. Learn more about what B&W stands for by going to AmericanMadeHitch.com. 'Twas a matchup made in Elko for the Cowboys in the know, called the Rough and Ready Knockdown Finals Old Ranch Rodeo. Now the Texans entered up a team they thought could never lose when they bet their reps against the Jordan Valley Buckaroos. You can tell from where they hailed if you put 'em up for bids. All the Buckaroos wore fancy scarves and Amish-looking lids, while the Texans wore their jackets for the brush down in the draws and them $20 roll-your-own cheap Guatemalan straws. Well, the teams were standing even when the final contest came. Untamed ungulate extraction, wild cow milking by name. They loosed the beast together, left their calves to bowl and mill, and the two teams fell upon 'em like hyenas on a kill. The Buckaroo a horseback threw his 40-footer right. He dallied just about the time the Texans' rope came tight. Their trajectories collided in a bawling, bucking wreck. The ropes and cows got tangled, and they wound up neck to neck. In the meantime, two big muggers, plus two others, brave and bold, attacked the knot of thrashing hide and tried to get a hold of something, hoof or horn or foot or spur or can of snooze, and then by accident some dummy turned the ball and calves loose. To describe the cataclysm would create an overload, but a photograph was taken, and this is what it showed. At the summit, pointed skyward, were the Texas mugger's toes, one arm around a buckaroo, his fingers in his nose, who in turn was mounted sideways, splayed across a bally black, who was laying on a milker who was smashed flat on his back. The Bramer cow was balanced on her head amidst the jag, while a Texan fought her baby for possession of the bag. From the cyclone flew the milkers, bottles high for all to see, like two winos at a party where the wine and cheese was free. The buckaroo's hind leg was dragging like he'd lost the farm, but he kept his place by clinging to the Texan's broken arm. When they fell across the finish line and tumbled in the dirt, the judge declared the buckaroo the winner by a squirt. Since the race looked pretty near even, the judge said with a shrug, "The winner is the cowboy with the most milk in his jug." "I object," cried out the Texan. "Our old cow just had 3 tits." "Well, that's a handicap," the judge said. "I admitted sure the pits, but the buckaroo I noticed too was short a couple bricks. If you added all his fingers, he could barely count to 6. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, brought to you by B&W Turnover Bowl.
Prime time, cutting edge. Angus Bull Sale happens March 4th at the BC Livestock Co-op Yards in Williams Lake, Saturday, March 4th, 1 p.m. 55 top-quality Angus yearling and 2-year-old bulls. These bulls are thick, well-muscled, ready to go to work for you. For all the information, call Jason, 587-377-3450, or Wayne, 250-395-6367. Be sure to check out the complete catalog online at primetimecattle.com. Just ahead of the Rangeland news, here's another fine singer and songwriter you can enjoy at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival next month. And he's the guy that chews our horses, Matt Johnson.
I'm sorry to hear you lost your cowboy hero. But don't you know that heroes never die? You think the West has lost the best. Now listen to what I say. That kind of thinking, boy, just ain't the cowboy way. Old cowboys never die, they say, they just ride away. Every day we breathe the air, we live their lives again. At rodeos and ranches, or in some old round corral, the spirit of the West is alive and well. Everything we've learned was left behind. Everything we learn, we pass down the line. Every cowboy should know just where their heroes go. They're a part of you and in your cowboy way. Old cowboys never die, they say, they just ride away. Every day we breathe the air, we live their lives again. At rodeos and ranches, or in some old round corral, the spirit of the West is alive and well. So don't you ever think that you're losing. Don't ever think you have to say goodbye. Remember who they are and what they stand for. And remember that heroes never die. Old cowboys never die, they say, they just ride away. Every day we breathe the air, we live their lives again. At rodeos and ranches, or in some old round corral, the spirit of the West is alive and well. Yeah, the spirit of the West is alive and well.
How about a weekend pass to the 21st Annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, March 16th to 19th, 2017. A terrific lineup of entertainers including Kevin Davis.
Early morning finds me out along the Great Divide. I stop and watch the prairie come alive.
Jay Snyder.
Imagine you're a cowboy, and breaking colts is what you do, and you've honed your skills for years and years, and other cowboys look up to you.
The one and only Ben Crane.
And me with checking cows in Saskatchewan sandy hills.
And so many more. There's the BC Cowboy Hall of Fame inductions, dinner shows, evening concerts, a wonderful art and gear show, the Art of the West show and sale, workshops, and everything from guitar playing to saddle making. The best place to get all the details is bcchs.com. And for tickets, call 1-888-763-2221.
Now the news of the Rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
Well, at the top of page 1, it says cow dogs who earn their keep on ranches are pretty used to being outside in the winter, and they generally do fine even in the coldest weather. But dogs who live in the city do face some challenges this time of year. And with more, here's Gary Crawford.
For dogs, it's not just the cold that could be harmful to them. Ann McCann is Emergency Pet Care Programs Coordinator with the Agriculture Department's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, and she told us
some of the salts and things that we're using to melt ice can be toxic, as well as antifreeze and other chemicals that we use in the very cold weather.
And when we take pets out for walks or whatever, they can get this stuff on them and later try to lick it off, and so
it is really important when you bring them back in to not only wipe and wash down their feet, but also their legs and belly, to take any of these chemicals off and reduce any chance that they have of just licking their fur and ingesting some of these chemicals.
Also, don't keep those pets out for very long in dangerously cold weather, because
if it's not safe for you, it's not safe for your pets.
In Washington, Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
The rusty-patched bumblebee, a prized but vanishing pollinator once familiar to much of North America, was listed last week as an endangered species, becoming the first wild bee in North America to gain federal protection. One of the several species facing sharp declines, the bumblebee, known to scientists as Bombus affinis, has plunged nearly 90% in abundance and distribution since late 1990, according to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The agency listed the insect after determining it to be in danger of extinction across all portions of its range, attributing its decline to a mix of factors including disease, pesticides, climate change, and habitat loss. Named for the conspicuous reddish blotch on its abdomen, the rusty-patched bumblebee once flourished across 28 states, including South Dakota and Connecticut, as well as in Canada. Today, only a few scattered populations remain. Well, when I look at the viewer stats for the webcast of this program and where the show is heard and watched, I always see some statistics from Israel. And I know that that's our friend Shlomak Raziel, fine horseman from Israel, and we met Shlomak at the Horsemen's Reunion in Paso Robles, California a few years ago. And I found this interesting. Currently, there are some 50,000 head of beef cattle in the entire country of Israel, and they are a Simmental breed that can be traced back to only 4 genetic lines. Cattle with Ohio lineage may soon, though, be roaming Israel's deserts if a recent mission to implant Israel's cattle with U.S.-bred cattle embryos succeeds. Last May, 2 Israeli ranchers toured several Ohio beef farms and 1 Montana ranch and selected 39 Angus and Longhorn embryos for their carcass quality and ability to thrive in harsh environments. Well, March the 4th, it's the prime time and cutting-edge cattle sale at the BC Livestock Co-op yards in Williams Lake. March the 7th, the regular cattle sale in Kamloops, plus the RRTS Charolais Bull Sale, and lots of special sales coming up. Get all the information at bclivestock.bc.ca. And meanwhile, across the mountains, the Innisfail Auction Market has regular cattle sales every Wednesday and 2 horse sales a month, and you can get all the details there at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com. And this is kind of interesting for our world of entertainment. New Brunswick-based ExploreNet Communications announced an all-cash $28.75 million deal with the Victoria-based Vecima Networks for the remaining assets of Vecima's YourLink business. YourLink is based in Saskatoon, and it's a major wireless service provider for rural Saskatchewan, offering fixed broadband wireless data and telephone access for residential and business users. The company in mid-2015 announced major expansions and upgrades of its Saskatchewan network, for which it picked up $4.6 million in federal funding. Now, these expansions are expected to connect over 40,000 additional homes by the end of April next year at a minimum speed of 5 megabytes per second. And one of the positive things I find about having to go into the city 3 times a week for my 4-hour dialysis treatment is the great Wi-Fi in the clinic. I can download at around 400 kbs. Well, here at the ranch, our ExploreNet satellite service gives us about 60 kbs. But it is pretty constant and reliable. Well, when ranchers need to measure the sizes of pastures or the length of a fence line, now you can get the answer by using the GeoMeasure application, which is a free download for iOS and Android smartphones. And you can also figure sprayer application rates or determine stocking rates. Touted to be very accurate, users can choose from a variety of units, including feet, meters, and miles, and there's no charge to download the app. But you will see some annoying advertisements and pop-up ads, and there is an option to remove those ads for $2.99. Interesting, this technology, and that kind of leads into our final item. And building and construction has come a long way since the days when everything was cut with a handsaw and measured with a square and nailed with a hammer. And these days, lasers are pretty accurate, and I was talking with the guy that built our house, good friend and great builder, and he was telling me how now you can measure the height of a building with a smartphone. Really, I said, Bill, how do you do that? Simple, he says. You take your phone up to the top of the roof, you tie a long string on it, and you hang onto the string, and drop your phone over the edge of the roof to the ground. And then you just go down and you measure the length of the string. I guess that would work. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the horse training file, herd-bound and barn-sour horses, two very common complaints a lot of horse owners have, but there are a few fairly simple things you can do that'll help fix these problems. Find out what they are when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Now, just ahead of the Irvine Saddles and Western Wear horse training file, Trinity Seeley is a ranch wife, a good hand with a horse and a rope. She rides her horses straight up in the bridle, vaquero style, ropes with a long, soft riata, and sings like an angel. And guess what? She will be at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival in March, and ranch wives everywhere, I'm sure, will recognize the little things she sings about here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep her in the way, let her by. I didn't say bye, I said she's a drive. Wait here, darling, and I'll be right back. 3 hours later when I'm fighting mad, 'cause he forgot about me, but he's so dang sorry. Keep on riding towards that patch of sage. Don't you think that's a little vague, considering that we live sagebrush sea? All the little things that keep you loving me. Trying real hard to find a place to go with the cow boss trailing in 3 feet of snow. Can't get my buckles unclipped, it's too dang cold. You're just sitting there starting to laugh when you see how many layers of clothing I have. Sometimes it's hard to be the only girl. Yes, I washed your red book in the washing machine. I was trying to get your anklers clean. How hard can it be to take off of your boots? All the little things that keep me loving you. I had a lady go to low, you say, darling, let's go take a ride. It'll be real romantic here right by my side. And I'm sure you wouldn't mind opening the gates. If you head this one, I'll catch your 2 back feet, and together we can lay her down real nice and sweet. And I think we make a heck of a team. When we're holding hands at the end of the day, 'cause we're too tired for fighting now anyway. I can tell by the look in your eyes you love me too. All the little things that keep me loving you. And would you go and grab that old black cow? I know there's 1,000 of them out there anyhow. I guess I should know which one you're referring to. All the little things that keep me loving you. So if you wanna know if you love your man, try working cattle hand in hand. And if you're both still alive at the end of the day,
You're invited to the 36th Select Charolais Bull Sale, March 3rd at the Innisfil Auction Market. 115 Charolais Bulls, 2-year-olds, yearlings, horn, polled, whites, and tans. High performance, top quality Charolais Bulls. The Marshalls and Shuttleworths look forward to seeing you on Friday, March 3rd at the Innisfil Auction Market. Check out the bulls online at www.futurefarms.ca or bid live at DLMS Marketing.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
Two very common problems, and they are somewhat related. The horse that's herd-bound and the horse that is barn sour. And we'll try and deal with both of them right away here. Experience the true spirit of the West at Canada's largest Western store, Irvine Tack and Western Wear. If you need a curb strap or a 4-star gooseneck trailer, you'll find it here. A saddle for every rider. Cutters, reiners, penners, trainers, working ranch cowboys, ropers. They have over 1,200 in stock. And they have Western wear for the entire family. And how about a gift card? Shop online at irvinesaddles.ca. Free shipping on orders of over $100. irvinesaddle.ca, 1-877-946-9494. Two common problems that are closely related: separation anxiety and being barn sour. I can't tell you how many times I've had riders say, my horse is fine until I try to ride him away from his buddy, and whether his buddy is alongside on the trail or back at home. Well, here's a novel concept that holds some ideas about the principle that will work. All right, let's say your brother-in-law shows up at your place. He may like your place better than his own, and he loves your wife's cooking, and your big screen TV, and your good Wi-Fi. Well, the longer he stays, the more he wants to stay, and the less he wants to leave. So what do? Well, just like a horse with that love of the barnyard better than the trail, you put him to work. Maybe splitting and stacking firewood on a hot day, loading 70-pound round bales off the field by hand, cleaning out the barn. Repeat fairly often, and he might decide that he would rather be a little more comfortable somewhere else. Well, folks have at times commented that my horses are so relaxed on the way home after a few hours on the trail or working cattle. And that is by design. From the time I start riding one, I will resist the temptation to get home immediately and unsaddle and brush and feed him. Most of the time, once we're home, I'll do a lot of work in the arena, loping circles, working on turnarounds, side passes, opening and closing gates, a lot of stuff like that. And quite often, if I have time after all that, I'll leave that horse saddled and tied to a post in the arena or tied to the trailer while I do some more chores. And that happens over and over, and that really does short-circuit that anticipation of all kinds of good things happening as soon as he gets home. Now, the next question some folks have is, oh gosh, my horse won't like me as much if I do that. Well, if you could come and watch, you'd see that when I finally pull the saddle off and lead the horse through the gate and ease the halter off, they'll stand there while I give them an affectionate rub, and then most of the time they will turn and follow me back to the gate. When they do that, then I know that all the work I've done on helping them understand that I'm the leader and we're a team is paying off. And that's the Irvine Saddlery and Western Wear Horse Training File. Something else our horses really appreciate, and we're happy to do it for them, is that daily feeding of Hoffman's Horse Ration. Find out more at hoffmanshorseration.com. Enjoy the Kamloops Cowboy Festival without the worry of winter driving. Frontier Bus Lines will leave Central Alberta March 16th and return on March 20th. And the package includes luxury motor coach transportation, 4 nights accommodation at the Coast Hotel and Conference Center in Kamloops, $15 daily meal coupon, 1 transfer to the Horse Barn, weekend pass to the Cowboy Festival, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday dinner and entertainment at the Convention Center. For more information, call 1-888-538-7287. A lot of our good friends do that. They take the bus out to the Kamloops Cowboy Festival, and they say, boy, that bus trip is sure a lot of fun. You know, I love visiting with cowboys like Ed Brown. He's a top hand with a horse, a rope, a guitar, and a song, and I recently asked Ed where the music side of things got started for him.
I was rodeoing during my 20s, and when I quit that, I had been playing guitar and writing some songs, and a lot of them were cowboy themed stuff because that's what I was doing. And when I quit rodeoing after a couple of years, I kind of missed the whole aspect of performing, because riding bucking horses was performing.
Kind of a big crowd.
Yeah, and there's a kind of a culture and so I started playing. At first, I started playing by myself in lounges and stuff, and then I got into a band and we toured around for probably all in all, on and off for about 10 years. I played with bands doing cover tunes of country songs and stuff. And then I just kind of drifted out of that, got kind of sour a little bit, I guess. And by that time, I was carving. I had a carving career and
an award-winning carving career as well.
Won some pretty big awards in the States and sold some pieces. And you know, the thing is, writing the songs and performing in the bars is a good training ground. You get used to you're not mic shy, and you're used to talking to crowds, and it really gave me a big leg up when I started doing poetry.
I don't know, I just find that those of us that are blessed enough to be able to spend some long, long hours in that solitude you only find on a good horse in a country where you're not going to see anybody else, opens doors in your mind that you didn't know were there.
Yeah, it does. Where I'm in Manitoba, I mean, we got the Assiniboine River Valley that's pretty nice with some side hills and stuff, but it's mostly flat and bush. But there's some beautiful days there where you get sunsets that you just can't believe in. And like Moon, one of the last songs I wrote was inspired by the moon. And I was coming home a little late from checking some cows, and it got dark, and I was riding along the moon. Big full moon was coming up, and it was just that. And you know, the silence of it is if you stop, it's almost deafening. You can hear this it's so quiet, and then the horse gives a little snuffle or something, and that's all there is there. That's just, and it stimulates something. I guess if we knew exactly what it was, we could teach it to somebody else. But I don't think. Yeah. Well, I guess we're all creative, and that creativity is something that. It's got nothing to do with looking at what somebody else did and trying to emulate it. It's got to do with forgetting about everything that's ever been thought of before and seeing if a new idea can come right out of your personal experience. And I don't think you're going to get that kind of stuff from somebody who doesn't have some kind of a background in the cowboy life. I've seen, and I don't know if it's just me, but you could take some guy and take him to a Western store and get some old twister who knows exactly all the right stuff to wear and the right stuff to, and I'm not the only one, but I'm saying I think within 5 minutes of talking to the guy, I'll know if he's actually done some stuff or not.
Well, Ed will be back in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight with one of his best-known originals, and coming up, it's our Western classic song from a guy that both Gene Autry and Roy Rogers said was the best singing cowboy of them all. And then Ed Brown and his signature poem, When the Spirit of the West, continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. This week's classic Western song is one I just came across. It actually has the same title as one that's pretty well known, written by Bob Nolan and recorded by the Sons of the Pioneers back in the early 40s. Now, this song with the same title was actually the theme song from a movie of the same name that starred one of my favorite singing cowboys of all time, Eddie Dean, back in 1946. Now, Eddie Dean has been called the finest singer of all the cowboy movie stars by both Gene Autry and Roy Rogers. And Eddie wrote this beautiful Western classic, and incidentally, the backup group was called the Singin' Cowhands in the movie, but they actually were the gospel quartet, the Sunshine Boys, and their bass singer was none other than J.D. Sumner. So here's Eddie Dean and the Tumbleweed Trail.
Folks call me a drifter, but that's all right with me. For as long as I have God's country, a drifter I'll always be. There's a trail through the wide open spaces where the moon and the stars are my friend. The broad purple desert, my highway, where the trail that I ride never ends. I'm at ease when the night overtakes me. There's no danger of losing my way. With the moon and the stars there to guide me as they light up the great Milky Way. Riding along my highway, the signs are easy to read. If you're traveling my way, just follow the trail of my tumbleweed, and you'll know when you're nearing God's country. All the rest of the world looks so pale, and right from the start there'll be a song in your heart when you ride down my tumbleweed trail. When you ride down my tumbleweed trail.
Ah, the voice of Eddie Dean, so special. Well, we've talked a little bit about technology today, and Ed Brown's piece of poetry reflects how well it works with a green Colt. It's called The Bridge.
The cowboy of old lived a tough life, it's said. One little mistake could soon find him dead. Like a pedal hung foot while taking a spill off a salty old bronc on an icy side hill. There were stampeding cattle and prairie fires gone wild. Winter's too cold, summer's too mild. There was fever and blizzards. They all took their toll on the cowboy's body, perhaps even his soul. You could live high, then die, all in the same day. Just why so many stayed with it ain't easy to say. But you know, for the few who today still ride the range, the risk is still there, though many of the hazards have changed. As an example of this, a wreck comes to mind, of late endured by an old friend of mine. My friend's name is Mike. And one day, Mike was headed for home on a snuffy young bronc we'll just call Mr. Roan. Now, he'd been breaking the colt, and things were going okay, and they had plenty of trail behind them that day, when they came upon a water-filled ditch. Now, Mike knew to cross it most places could be a real bitch. There was 2 feet of water and at least that much mud. Even on a broke horse, it would have been a tough slug. And so, as Mike surveyed the scene from a nearby ridge, he was quite pleased to spot that old timber bridge. Now, it spanned the ditch about 6 feet high. It was weathered and gray, but seemed sound to the eye. Of course, to Mr. Roan, bridges were something brand new. And so, as they approached it, he snorted and blew. Old Mike figured, hell, what better time to bridge break the colt? So he just turned out his toes and give him a poke. The roan jumped aboard. Seemed he knew who was boss, and hell, in no time at all, they were halfway across. Well, Mike had his hands full, for sure, but figured he could get the roan through if he could just hold them together for another minute or two. Well, it was right then they both heard it. That twittering rattle. It was the cell phone hanging from the back of your saddle. What a hell of a time to get a phone call. Seems the roan agreed and let out a bawl. Then he dropped his head and started to pitch, and pretty soon they were both upside down in the ditch. Well, old Mike busted 3 ribs and damn nearly drowned. But he's tough, and he managed to drag himself back to high ground. He looked all over for any sign of that roan, but hell, by then, that cayuse was halfway home. But Mike could still hear the twitter of that cell phone bell as it rang again and again from right there where it fell. He dragged himself over there and he picked it up and said, "What?" It was Mike's wife on the other end who started to talk. "You were on a green colt. It's getting on towards night. I just called to make sure that you were all right." Now, the irony of the situation wasn't lost on Mike. He still loves a good joke. But you know, today, all Mike's horses are cell phone broke.
Well, thank you so much for making the ride this week, and I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. And thanks again to our great support crew. That would be Mark and Kathy McMillan. They own and operate Meadow Springs Guest Ranch. Great place to bring your own horses or use theirs at, you can see all about them at meadowsprings.com. And if you're looking for tractor parts, well, Mark can help you there. See his new website at bctractorparts.com. And as always, there's great reading in every issue of Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine, and you can subscribe online at cowboycountrymagazine.com. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.